Okay, that's right. Okay, let's go. Ok, buenos días a todos. Tenemos hoy una conferencia muy interesante, la visión de la OCDE sobre visualización. Hello, everyone. I'm going to switch into English. Good morning. We're having a new conference in this series of conferences, the seminar on data visualization. Our conference will be on the OECD approach to data visualization. We have here Vincent Finat-Duclos. He works for the OECD in the Public Affairs and Communications Directorate. After a few years as a data editor, he now works on the external communications of data for the OECD, and is a project manager for the OECD Better Life Index. So most of you may know Better Life Index, a project on citizen engagement and measurement of well-being. Prior to working at the OECD, he worked in the private sector as a business analyst for Orange in Brussels, and in marketing research at LU. Vincent graduated from Paris 9 Dauphine with a specialization in decisional mathematics applied to social science. So thank you, Vincent, for coming and presenting. The floor is yours.
Thank you for welcoming me. I'm going to share my screen. Is it fine? Do you see the screen?
Yeah.
So
yes.
As Ricardo mentioned, I'm Vincent Finat-Duclos. I work at the OECD as a project manager and data visualization officer. And I'm going to speak to you about the OECD approach to data visualization. I'm mostly going to show you a few projects we've worked on over the years, and also describe the tools we've used and the process in some cases. So this is the table of content for the presentation. So as I quickly introduce the OECD, but I think most of you are familiar with it. Then I mentioned some of the tools we're using when it comes to data visualization and also data analysis. And then I'll speak to you about some visualization projects we've worked on and how things have evolved and why they've evolved over the years. Then some internal processes, and also I'll quickly speak about measuring and improving data visualization, how we think about it and how we proceed. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen is one of the experiments we've made right after the start of the COVID crisis, where we were trying to show projections for GDP in an uncertain time when we didn't know whether there would be one COVID crisis, two COVID crises, three COVID crises. So it was an experiment where we were allowing the users to play with a cursor, and that way discover the two scenarios. Okay. So the OECD, I'm not going to read all of this because I think most of you are familiar with it, but basically the OECD is an international organization which is now 60 years old. It has 38 members and is working with over 100 partner economies. And it is mostly known for its internationally comparable data and also all of its analysis. I'm working in the Communication Directorate, which function is to ensure that we communicate on the global public agenda and the OECD policies and research. This is just a slide on the OECD structures, just to explain quickly how it works, but I don't think it's really that interesting for the presentation. But basically, the OECD has a council which is composed of representatives from all the member countries, so the 38, and it has a secretariat, which is composed of a bit more than 20 directorates. Each directorate refers to a committee which decide of the work for the year, of the subjects to work on for the year. So most of the work you'll see from the Oecd is coming from the secretariat and the 20 directorate it's made of. A strong audience of the Oecd is obviously composed of policymakers and policy shapers. But now the Communication Directorate is also trying to focus on citizens at large, not just focusing, not just having an audience based of people really into the subject, but like going a bit further and reaching more mainstream people, if I can say this. One of the functions of the Communication Directorate is also to bring a transversal layer to the Oecd work, in the sense that each directorate is specialized in a thematic, and PAC is trying to, the Communication Directorate is trying to build a narrative that bring back these various subjects together, like a coherent narrative. So what do we use when we do analysis and communication? So this slide is really about the tools. The analysis is made of like famous software such as SAS, SPSS, Data, MATLAB, Excel, Python, or StatWork. These are the key software that are used for the analysis on data, and also sometimes visualize them, but mostly for the experts. When it comes to the analysis, some of the software you'll see and tools you'll see mentioned in the middle also allows for analysis. R, for example, is a statistical software, but like with all the packages that are developed for R, now it's a mixed tool that allows analysis, but also really good communication. So that's why we're using softwares at the Oecd that are either for analysis, either for communication on the right-hand side, Illustrator, Photoshop, web libraries such as D3GS or iChart, and then ready-made tools such as Flourish, Data Wrapper, and Raw. And there's this set of tools that's Carte Données, R, Chart Generator, Power BI, that allows for analysis of the data and communication. In the context of the Communication Directorate, we're not using them too much because we're not specialized enough. I think except for me and the person, most people wouldn't know how to use this software. And so that's why we rely more on the really on the tool targeted at communication, such as Illustrator or Flourish, Data Wrapper. Okay, so my presentation is going to be mostly on data visualization and communication, not on the analysis. So I'll quickly speak about the project we work on, what is our corporate approach, and how we try to improve and evolve. So data visualization has always been a key component of the Oecd work. And if you take one of our key publications, the Usd Economic Outlook, which is published twice a year since 1967, you can see that charts have always been a key component of this report, and that they have evolved a lot over the years. These evolutions follow the trends that you have in visual design, but also the evolutions of the tools and the capacity. So you can, sorry, I switch slide. So you can see that in the 1960s, we started with a black and white chart, and that the style of the charts slowly evolved with more complexity, more layers added to the charts. Then in the 1980s, we start bringing colors to the chart. And it comes with the evolution of the printing services, the introduction of maybe computers in some cases. So like colors is coming. And what what is interesting is, and so with colors, more complexity comes with the charts. And what's interesting is that in the early 2000s, we went back to a more blue type of chart graphic. And the reason was that colors didn't work really well with black and white printing. So like people that would print our reports in black and white couldn't really understand any of the charts. So we developed one chart graphic that allowed for black and white printing. So it was color with like gradient of blue, but allowed to complexity within the chart and black and white printing. The latest iteration you can see of the Economic Outlook in the 2020s, you can now see that we went back to color because the cost of printing in color are really lowered. So most people now can print in colors. And we are slowly moving to digital. So our reports are all available online, and the black and white screen are not really existing anymore. So we're coming back to color. Now I'm going to, oops, sorry. Now I'm going to speak to you about some of the more digital component of our work. So oops, sorry about that. That started in 2007. Prior to that, our web presence and our charts were mostly done for print publications, and then like images of this chart were published on the web. We didn't have any real tool to publish online. So in 2009, we started developing online tool. If you look at the slide, there's a gray line in the middle, and tools that are mentioned above the gray line refers to tool that allows to produce lots of charts. They're not just one-off tool. They're there to produce several charts. Whereas like the tools below the gray line are like one-off specialized tool that focus on just one subject. So these are the most prominent project we've worked on since the 2007, and the interesting thing is the technology evolutions we've followed. So in 2009, I think we developed our first charter. It was a tool that allowed you to copy paste your data from an Excel or a text file, and from this tool you could select between 3 chart types: line chart, bar chart, or clustered chart, and you will quickly have an image or a SVG file that you could put online for the web. So that was our first real digital tool to produce charts for the web. Then at the same time, we were developing our online library called OECD iLibrary, where we started displaying statistical indicator. And to display these indicators, we developed the active charts. So I don't have any screenshots for the active charts because they've completely disappeared from the web. But they were just like basic line chart or bar charts that were taking the data from the indicators and displaying them in an interactive format you could mouse over. In 2012-2013, we launched a tool called compareyourcountry.org that could be plugged on .stat. .stat is our internal data warehouse. So all the directorates collate data, and they can put them in .stat, and that allows for internal and external dissemination. So CYC had the benefits of being compatible with .stat, and you could also plug in any Excel files on it. And it was allowing you to create a dashboard made of several line charts with tabs and compare data across countries. Obviously, this tool has developed over the years, but like it's still being used, and it's now 9 years old. I'm going for the replicable tool first. In 2015, we launched the data.oecd.org. So it's our online platform that presents the key statistical indicators collected by the OECD. We launched this website after there was some pressure for more open data from the OECD part. And so we developed this website to present our key work and link to all the content. So with this website, it looks really simple for when you look at the interface, with just a few bar chart, just a few chart types, bar chart, line chart, or map, and an indicator selection that is not as complete as what the OECD offers. But it is simple because there's lots of curation that is made in the background. So the website has been thought in such a way that it's really clear for the user, but that means that internally we have a really complicated, really not complicated, but really intense process in terms of data selection, defining the chart type that can go with this data, the type of measures we can display and that people will understand, and then we have to link the relevant content to this data, so the relevant database, the relevant reports, and all of this in a single interface that can be understood by everybody. So the visualization behind on this chart on this platform are really simple, but the work to get to that visualization and all the metadata around is quite intense. We were planning on developing it further in the coming year or the next year, and there will be more chart type and hopefully under layer to the platform where you'll have a more complete view of all the OECD indicators. In 2019, we launched what we call the webbook. Webbook were existing for quite a while. Webbook are just online report in HTML, but the previous webbook only had like images in them, whereas like the new iteration of the webbook that was launched in 2019 now have interactive charts that are built thanks to the compare your country chart I've mentioned earlier. And now in 2021, we have started using a tool in a professional way called Flourish. Flourish is a web tool available to all with free license and paid for license, and that allows to create interactive charts in a really easy way. You just plug in your data and choose your chart type, and you create some quite fancy advanced chart. It is an experiment. We're not sure we'll keep on using the Flourish license, but it has had some really strong benefits in the sense that we've been able to develop a lot more interactive chart for the web than we were previously, because it's much easier to use than everything we've developed so far. Now I'm going to speak of the more specific project. So we have the Better Life Index that was launched in 2011, and that still exists and is being updated usually on a yearly basis, even if it's been 2 years that we haven't done so. And the Better Life Index is like our first attempt at interactive data, our first real attempt at interactive data visualization. And it was launched in the context of the OECD 50th anniversary. We realized we were trying to find a way to mark the date. And at the time, a lot of work was being made about the going beyond GDP. And we realized that OECD had been working on that for quite a while, but no one really knew about it. So that's why we decided to launch the Better Life Index. I won't say much more than this because I'll speak about it a bit later. But yes. Then in 2017 came Compare Your Income. It's an online survey that asks people to their perception about their income and how it relates to the society around them. It has had a lot of attention, attracted a lot of attention with like a lot of people answering it. And one of its key strengths was the simplicity of the survey and the fact that it was really visual. We've received a lot of commentary about that. In 2019, we've launched quite a few projects, the Sdg Pathfinder, Going Digital, the Forum 20 Years, and Africa Police. The Sdg Pathfinder is an online library that allows you to find OECD content and other IGO content related to SDG. And alongside the library, we've developed a database that is a network of concepts attached to the SDG. It took quite some time to develop and was quite complex, but it was really interesting because it relates to artificial intelligence. All the concepts linked to the SDG are extracted through artificial intelligence processes. The Going Digital platform is more classic in a way, it's just a dashboard of indicators related to digital to accompany the Going Digital toolkit. It was realized with an outside company which is called Interactive Thing, and they've developed the whole design, the whole ecosystem based on the specifications we had. Sorry about this long list of projects. The Forum 20 Years is a visualization we've built to celebrate the 20 years of the OECD Forum, an event that is occurring every year at the end of the month of May usually. And so what we did is we extracted all the programs of the OECD forums and the blurbs that were attached to the session to find the keywords that were being spoken about. And we displayed the evolution of these keywords over the years to see what the world was talking at each OECD forum. So you have this wave. So it's the purple to pink wave where you see the different trends and wording. Africa Police is a project launched by the Development Directorate of the OECD, which reference data from Africa and is trying to redefine what metropolitan areas are and where really people are living, and to show that cities' boundaries are defined as they are defined currently, are not really the cities' boundaries. And the last project on this slide is the Country Policy Tracker. It's a tool we developed last year in the early stage of the COVID crisis, and that was to allow people to find all the policy analysis work made by the OECD on a country basis. So you will select your country, and then you will find the key policy measures taken by the countries. The collection of these measures was made by the Directorate, and we were just visualizing this. So all of these projects have a commonality. They're displayed on the web, and they rely on web library that have been evolving over the years. So in one of my first slides, I mentioned the tool we've been using. And when I speak of when I spoke of web libraries, I mentioned D3GS and iChart, and these are two web libraries that are really widely used for visualization on the web. And all the projects you see here rely on these libraries, except maybe for Flourish, because it's a pro tool, private, and I don't know which technology they base themselves on. These libraries are fairly intimidating at first, but a really good thing on the web is that you have lots of examples on how to use them. There's a different platform, and I can give you the link to them to learn how to create a simple visualization with these libraries. In the next slide, I'm just going to make a small zoom on a few projects I've mentioned before. So the OECD Better Life Index, as I've said, was developed in 2011. It was developed by Moritz Stefaner, which is a German designer, based on an idea we had internally. So the idea was to build a composite indicator that wouldn't give any definite ranking, because our economists wouldn't say which component of the well-being was more important than the other. So they basically were saying that we cannot consider that housing, income, jobs, community, or any of these 11 dimensions is more important than another for people's well-being. So it should be up to the user to decide which one is really important to them. So we came up with that idea of a composite indicator where like people could rank the various indicators, the various dimensions of the well-being, and push that idea to an external designer and database developer who come back with the concept of the flower and to compare the country. It's one of the websites we've developed that has the strongest engagement, and even 10 years after the launch, it's still relevant, and the design-wise, it's still not outdated. So it was a really it's a really good visualization we've created, which is simple and engaging because it's not your classic bar chart, but people still relate to it, even if they don't understand always the meaning of all the details. They have a sense of what's happening and how it works. So in that regard, that was a real success. The data.oecd.org platform, I'm just going to complete a bit what I've said previously, but in fact, I've spoken about it quite a lot previously. So that's our online platform to present the key OECD indicators. So they're presenting it in a thematic way, where you have like the various OECD thematic: agriculture, economy, finance, development, and under each thematic you have a few topic, and below each topic a few indicators, and you can then compare your country. It offers four chart type: line chart, bar chart, maps, and tables. One of the challenge we've had with the with the maps on this platform is that the OECD only covers 38 countries, which are mostly based in Europe, and a few other countries spread out across the world, such as Mexico or Japan. And so our map are not always complete because we don't have data for all countries. And also, like, Europe is made of lots of small countries that are hardly visible on the map. I realized I should have put a screenshot of a map on this slide to show better what I meant. But so maps have been a challenge. In the end, we resorted to use bubble map with bubbles that are non-overlapping, and it is causing some issues because as bubbles are not overlapping, they slightly move away from the country they refer to. So sometimes data for Luxembourg are on top of Poland, and Poland data on top of Russia. So it's not perfect. That's something we're planning on developing further and improving in the future. The really good thing about data.oecd.org is all the metadata accompanying the indicator. You can find the related data set, the accompanying reports, and so user can quickly access more information about the indicator and get the full concept. One of the things we've really pushed for is the possibility to share your indicator. So you can easily extract make a section of what's interesting to you, and then share it through social media or embed it on your website. The Sdg Pathfinder, as I've said, was launched in 2019 and is presenting the OECD work related to SDG. So we have an artificial intelligence that is going through all the OECD reports, all the OECD indicators, and attaching concept to them. And each concept is attached to an SDG. And so the map you see, the network you see is referencing this concept and the SDG. So by mousing over the network, you can discover the concept and which SDG it refers to. And if you click on the concept, you then get the list of OECD report or OECD chapters or indicators that relate to this concept. The visualization has been made with D3GS. It's been developed by me actually internally, and it is based on a work by Nadie Bremer, which is a Dutch designer and she had developed a similar map for the UNESCO. So the design is strongly inspired by hers. Now, what I'm going to show is a bit different. That's our digital report. Digital reports are communication efforts around the launch of our key publications. So in this case, the Oecd Economic Outlook. So whenever we launch one economic outlook, we now try to develop a narrative around it that is displayed on this web page you see on the left-hand side. And so it takes the key elements of the report, the key messages, and we're trying to develop a few charts around these key elements to really, for users to have a strong sense of what the report is about. So we have the key message and the key data behind each report displayed on the web page, and then people can download the report if they want more information, but at least they have the main summary in one go. Most of the charts are now developed using the data portal, data.oecd.org, and the tool I've mentioned previously, Flourish. We've used it a lot lately to create charts because it allows for really fast processing. The idea behind this digital report is to provide, in a way, what we like to call a 360-degree communication, in the sense that we have we touch the print factor, the print sector with the report, the web sector with this digital view with all the charts and everything, and then every component of the digital report can be reused on the OECD social media or like across social media. Since we've started using that approach, we've had a lot more press. We had a lot more coverage in the media because they have easy bits they can grasp and reuse. So that has proved really effective in terms of communication, and it has pushed us a bit in terms of data presentations, in the sense that these digital reports are supposed to be a bit unique. So we're trying to come up with new design every time we're producing one. So how does it all work? So that's a really simplified OECD ecosystem. So we have in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, you'll see the data where the data comes from. So we have .stat, which is our internal data warehouse, and where I've said, as I've said previously, where like all directorates put their data. We have sometimes ad hoc data that comes from Excel or from some external API or basic text file. All this information, all those data, we use them, and either through data.oecd.org or Compare Your Country, which are the two platforms I've mentioned previously. And the advantage of these two platforms are that they allow for quick repurposing and sharing of this data. So once we have the data in data.oecd.org or in Compare Your Country, we can quickly use them on the COVID Hub, which is part of the oecd.org website, on our blog platforms such as the Forum Network, the oecd.org website, and on social networks. So having an internal tool that quickly digests the data allows for quick reusing of this data on various platforms. So that's what we have with data.oecd.org and Compare Your Country. But unfortunately, all this data cannot always be treated automatically, and sometimes you want more specific representation or like more entertaining, I don't know if more attractive ones. So you have to resort to other software and this is the black box you see in the middle. I've put the black box because really like that's everybody's internal cuisine. When we don't have like a tool that treats the data automatically, everybody has his own favorite software. So what we use internally for communication is for chart creation is mostly Adobe Suite. So it's Illustrator or Photoshop. That's mostly communication people that do that, and for static chart to be published on social media. You have Flourish, which is the tool I mentioned previously, and Data Wrapper, which allows for quick creation of charts. Data Wrapper is a German equivalent of Flourish. It's not as interactive, but the results are a bit neater in a way. Then we have our under internal software, which is called .graph, and which is sitting on .stat, and that's just a way to visualize the data. And there's the web library I've mentioned previously, D3GS, and that we've used a lot in our various projects. So one of the things we really have to do in the future is try to improve this black box, because currently we're using too many tools, and not everybody's experienced with all these tools. So we should try to put some order into it and come with a more restrictive list of tools that allows for greater that allows to produce everything we want, but in an easier way, because currently everybody is doing his own little cuisine the way they want, and we have a problem in style, because not all the charts that come out from the OECD they don't all look alike, and that's bad for the communication and the OECD identity. So that's one of the challenges we're working on. So as I've said, so I'm going back to this slide. As I've said, we have this set of tools that are used by lots of people internally, and not everybody is using them in the same way. So how do we make everybody work in the same direction, if you want, when it comes to visualization? One of the key messages the Communication Directorate is pushing is that we should, whenever we try to produce a chart, whenever we come with an interactive project, we should just go to the essence and start adding too much complexity around on the chart or on the project. Because one of the things we discover is that with tools and with the possibility they offer, we tend to want to show everything in a single chart in a single project, and that's usually too much for the user. So you really should focus on the essence of what you want to on the message, and just show what is essential to your message, and not go much further. So that's the key thing we're trying to push when communicating with internally on best practices. there is currently a smart data strategy that is being put in place at the OECD to try to come up with good process for data and best good use case and improve everybody's capacity. And this smart data strategy relies on communities of practice. These communities, they're managed by everybody in the sense that you can volunteer to manage a community. For example, I'm managing the data and communication community internally. And so the idea is to share experience. So I often call out colleagues to ask them to present new projects they've worked on or new tools they're developing. And so we have all this list of communities that help us like improving all the data process aspect. Sorry. So you have policy simulation and visual data analytics, which is more like it's about data visualization, but for analysis mainly. You're going to have a community on web scraping, a community on geospatial analysis. And so all of this community help you make the best usage of your data for specific subject. So the idea is to really share like to develop a collective intelligence around data, and also allow people to express their needs, because sometimes people have a certain need for a project and they don't realize that the people internally have the competencies to help them. So these communities help them like finding the right person to move on with their project. They've proved really useful, and so we've started with the communities like I would say 2-3 years ago, probably 2, and it's something that is quickly developing. To come up with good charts and good visualization, and we've developed a few set of guidelines that we share internally and that we try to push. But the problem is one of the OECD has a strong turnover. People come and leave, so we always have to push for the guidelines and get users to use them, and it's not always easy. So the guidelines help you. For example, on charts and visualization, we have guidelines that help you pick the best type of charts for the data you have and for what you want to show. We have data on the what the title should look like, what the subtitle should look like, in the sense that grammar rules, style, depending on your audience, depending on the output, whether it's for the web, whether it's in a report. And we have also a few guidelines that have been developed with external data visualization experts, and that gives key ideas on how to think about your visualization and how to create it. Because one key issue we have at the, not a key issue, but like the OECD publishes lots of reports, and they usually lots of them are published regularly on a yearly or 2-year basis. And so we tend to reuse the same figures without thinking much about it. We're just reusing what has been done in the past, and sometimes like the chart will benefit from like being rethought because countries have evolved, because the subject has changed a bit. So these guidelines also push people to rethink some of the work they don't usually think about redoing. We obviously have a chart graphic. So the chart graphic is something we try to communicate on and push. It's based on the chart graphic that has been developed for data.oecd.org. But what we realized is the chart graphic is good because it allows for to produce quite a lot of chart type and make the prominent data show the prominence of some data compared to others. but it's hard to push because we, as I've said, we have lots of tools and basically it's hard to replicate. So we're currently in the work of improving the chart graphic, redeveloping it a bit because web has evolved since 2015. And while developing the new chart graphic, we'll also develop a lot of templates accompanying it so that people can apply the chart graphic in a much easier way than what is currently the case. Because currently, if you don't use the existing tools such as compare country or data.oecd.org, it's hard to replicate. So that's something we're working on. The impact of the chart, how to ensure and measure the interest of the data visualization. I'm not sure I'll go into much details in that section, but basically what we realized when we create data visualization or develop a web project is that we really have to ask people around us what they think about the chart, if they understand it, even if they don't know much about the subject, and even more if they don't know much about the subject, because it really helps like improving the visual. So like one rule we try to establish is whenever we create a chart, we have to submit it to a few people, a few random people to see what they think of it, if they have improvements they would like to see to understand it. Obviously, none of the comments are mandatory to take on board because it's a visual thing and everybody has comments when it comes to visual things. So everybody has ideas and you have to decide what you take in or not. But it usually helps a lot to just have an external person reviewing the chart. Also, what we realized is we tend to use always the same type of chart, bar chart, line chart, because they're the most common and they're the one that people understand the most. But sometimes taking the time to explore new chart types is really good and help you clarify your message. So when you have the time, trying to explore the other type of chart is good. So I'm coming back. In our guidelines, we have a list of charts, and we're trying to push people to explore them when they need to. And then obviously we're trying to monitor because most of our work is published online. We have lots of metrics coming from Google Analytics. We have a tool called Crazy Eggs that provides its map of the page, and that lets you see where people have clicked on the page. So if you have an interactive chart, you immediately see if they use the tooltip, if they clicked on the button. We have the social media analytics, and we also do qualitative testing from time to time with survey, quantitative and qualitative testing, in fact, with survey. Obviously, all these metrics doesn't always help you. As I've said, we have a heat map of the usage web map. I was referring to the heat map of the page that allows you to see where people click. It's good, and it lets you see if people have clicked on your chat. But also, you have to ask yourself the right question: did people click because they understood the chart and they wanted to click, or did people click because they didn't understand the chart and they were just clicking by reflex? It's not always clear, and so you have to really stack metrics carefully, but it helps you improve as well. Like we're making experiments where we move a button, we change the color, and based on the results we get, we see what works best for the user and try to define standards that works for everybody. So that's what I'm referring to as the feedback loop. Where will we go with data visualization? As I've said at the early stage, the communication directorate is trying to touch a larger public than policymakers and journalists. So one of our goals is to reach out to a wider audience and also get feedbacks from this audience. We want to maximize the impact of policy evidence, and we realized that chart and data visualization were a really strong component of it. So we're trying to define a new strategy where chart are even more at the center of our communication. We're trying to get to the top of search engines. So the 5 points you're seeing here are the key objectives of our smart data strategy for communication. So getting to the top of search engines, that means optimizing your website, optimizing the metadata around your data visualization so that it's fun. With the metrics we're collecting, we're trying to make sure the user stays at the center and that really understands what we're doing. And we want to produce more impactful data stories and charts for users. There's just an annex behind, but that's about the tools that are used by the main media, such as the New York Times, The Economist. So it's not very interesting. I think I'm done with my presentation.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I think it's very interesting. And for us, I have some questions here from the audience, but I would like to make you just one question. You said that you're working more now to the citizens at large, and we're interested in know how you measure that impact of your communication. It would be nice to know if you have different segments of your public, of your audience, and how you manage that.
So we are trying to measure the impact on various audience and actually defining also our audience. So the Communication Directorate has integrated an impact team, has built an impact team that monitors the analytics we get from social media, so Google Analytics, that runs survey on a regular basis on the website, that also has a budget to run survey with companies such as Ipsos or Sopres or Gallup to know more about OECD perception. So we're really trying to monitor from as many sources as we can and see if we have an impact and what needs to be improved. Okay, thank you very much. I have a question here from Rogelio Ramos from CIMAT. He's saying, what is the attitude of the OECD regarding reproducible research? And two more related to the same thing from Rogelio. Are the data sets open? Is the underlying methodology open? I cannot answer for the role of the OECD because we have lots of directorates and each of them work in a very specific way. But regarding open reproducible research, the data sets are open. Now most of the data at the OECD are open. I'm just trying to see if there are exceptions, because at some point we had .stat, which is our data warehouse, was contain data that were not shared externally, but it's not the case anymore. Like everything published on .stat is available to all and freely. Most of our reports are available to all, but not as a PDF form, as a web as a web form. So it's not completely open in the sense that you have to resort to screenshot if you want to extract some some bits of text, but like you can access all of the OECD work. The data sets are open. as I've said, but sometimes for some specific working paper, it will be a set of data that have been collected for this specific topic. And so it's not always on .stat. So in this case, it's up to the authors to decide whether they share the data or not. From my experience, it's more and more the case. If the data are not on .stat, they give you a link to some online database that are hosted on GitHub or anything. And it's the same for the programs run for the analysis. Most of the code is now open, not everything, but we can see a movement that has started, and the younger generation of economists is really pushing for that, like make everything open and shareable. Okay. So we're not fully there, we're not there completely, but it's ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent. I have one more question from Rodrigo Tapia McClure. He's saying, does the OECD Statistics Directorate has backward support for previous developments and visualizations when they update software, or do they start with a clean slate?
Could you repeat the question? So
when they update software? I mean, I think that's the main question. Or do they start from a clean, from zero?
It really depends on the case and on the technology that was used.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I can't really give you a detailed answer, but basically, yes, it's a case-by-case thing, because some of the work they've developed has been developed in coordination with DKI and with the information. With other technical teams at the OECD, and so if these teams have changed technology, they don't always support past technology. So it's really a case-by-case thing.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I have another question here. It's related to the Better Life Index from Carmen Bobadilla in INEGI. What were the main challenges you face about visualizing in the Better Life Index?
There were quite a few challenges when it came to the Better Life Index. In fact, first, the idea of a composite indicator was born in the Communication Directorate, so my directorate, because the framework was based on a selection of indicators that could have made a dashboard, but really the idea of a composite indicator took some time before being bought in internally. And the only reason it's been validated is because we came up with that concept of having the user giving weight to each of the dimensions. So it was not really a composite indicator set by the OECD, it was just the user. So we had to put some politics into that decision. And then when the external designer Moritz Stefaner came with some visualization proposals for the Better Life Index for these composite indicators, he came with like things that were much more classic than the flower shape we have, such as a stacked bar, like bubbles on top of each other. So we had classic proposals and something that was a bit more figurative, imaginative, and we took quite some time to convince people internally that not going for the classic thing could be a good thing.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's a very interesting and difficult to manage visualization. I have a question from Alejandro Ruiz. What are your main takeaways on the type of visualizations that help attract new users, especially on social media?
That's a complicated one, in the sense that we try to do some analysis on what works and what doesn't. But the problem with social media is that you have the visualization, message, and one is attracting the user. So I would say that what we've noted is that the simple part with color, what works the best, in the sense that that's where we've noted the most engagement, the most like, but it's probably because it's the most simplest and people can like it easily. But the message has to be really important. The message attached to the visualization has to be really clear for people to engage with it. From personal experience, I found that what mattered, whatever the complexity of your chart, you had to have the right annotations, the right title, make sure that all the small elements that helps the understanding of the chart are there and clearly visible. And usually you get high engagement, not as high as if you have a colorful bar chart, but you get good results.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you very much. Well, I have some more questions, but we're just very close. So yeah, we're just 1 minute ahead. The thing of the black box, I mean, how do you construct these narratives? How do you reach the between the different subjects and the general public? I mean, that for me is something very important, since in INEGI we also covered very different subjects. So we need that a way to get our communication to the public, to the different publics.
I work for the communication directorate, so we have people that are more at ease with speaking directly to wider audience, like not specialists. And I think what works really well is when you have people that are non-specialists of a subject that exchange with a specialist. So because that way you end up with like a wording that is satisfying in the sense that it respects the specialist view and you're not making a mistake, but something that is simple enough for someone external to not expert to understand it. So and that's why what I mentioned, that you have to show your chart to someone else is really important before publishing it, because you need the external eye to review it. Because as an expert or someone working on a specific thing at a certain point, you know exactly what you want to say, you know what you want to push, but you're too deep in the subject to realize that something is not that clear.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think that is something very important. I saw that you had some guidelines, so I'm sure that we would be very interesting in getting a look to those guidelines that you already mentioned. We're going to put your presentation in our website, so everyone can review it once more, and also the recordings. So thank you very much, Vincent. It was very nice talking to you this evening there in Paris, and hope everyone also had some insights from the OECD's perspective on visualization. And we're having another a panel discussion where we can just address some more of these interesting topics on June 29, panel discussion with also participating with Vincent and some other developers of visualizations from the official information point of view. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you on the 29th. Thank you, Vincent, for being with us.
Thanks a lot for welcoming me.